So what we're going to do is we're going to start by launching Outlook. Now on this particular machine, I've never launched Microsoft Outlook 2013. So when I go ahead and double click on it, which I could have easily gone to the Start menu and picked it as well, however you get to it doesn't matter. First thing it's going to say is welcome. But because you don't have an account associated with it, it's not going to move forward. Now what do I mean by you don't have an account? Well, let's take a second and kind of go over some more detail on how email actually works and the difference between your email server, your email account, and Outlook. How do those three interplay? Well, Outlook doesn't actually do the sending and receiving of the email. It is actually communicating with a server somewhere. That server somewhere is managing your email. In other words, it sits on the internet or the cloud 24/7 and it acts as a post office. So what you can do is you can give an email to the post office and it will send it. It will get an email and hold on to it as a post office. Think of it as a post office box. I have to go then get to that post office box and pull my mail and bring it down to my machine. Well, in order for me to actually do all those things, I can't talk to the email server directly. What I have to do is I have to have an email client. And what the email client does is it actually, in this case Outlook, sends credentials, or it sends a token that says, I am Josh, to the email server. It verifies who you are and it sends you your information, creates that conversation. That credential, that token, is your account. So if you were using AOL, hello, you've got mail. That is an email server. So when you log in, you're actually using a client to talk to the AOL account, or the AOL server, using your AOL account. Then the AOL server does all your communication and sends and receives the email for you. So you have to have three elements. You have to have a client, which in this case is Microsoft Outlook. You got to have credentials, your user ID and password, which is your account on an email server. Now, where you get that may be different. Maybe it's work and they have what's called an Exchange server and they're managing their own post office. Maybe you're using a dial-up service or a service like Earthlink, or you're using the one that comes with your cable subscriber or your Verizon subscriber or your digital subscriber. They give you mailboxes. Or maybe you're using an online service like Yahoo, Hotmail, Gmail. Those are all different ways that you can get email accounts to send and receive your email. Now in our case, we're getting ready to configure our Outlook client to use our Gmail account. We actually have a Gmail account, o365teacher@gmail.com. So let's go ahead and get started. And this is a very similar process to what you'll walk through. I hit next. First thing it is, do you want me to set up an email account? Well, I'm going to say yes. All right, it's going to ask me some simple questions. This is going to be o365teacher. That's who I am. That's my name. My email address is o365teacher@gmail.com. And my password, not telling you. Okay, now at this point, when I hit next, what it's going to do, what Outlook is going to do is it's going to contact the Gmail server using this email address and these passwords. That's going to say, hey, I'm setting up an account. Can you give me all the stuff I need? Because what you need to configure is actually, who do I talk to when I'm sending mail? Who do I talk to get my mail? And here's who I am. Those are all your configurations, and it does what's called an outgoing and an incoming mail server, so I know who to talk to. Well, because there's a lot of common ones out there, AOL, Hotmail, Gmail, Yahoo, they have created this system where what Outlook is going to do is going to send the information and go, hey, can you help me? And when it returns that information, it'll already know who the outgoing mail server is, already know who the incoming mail server is, and basically it'll set it all up for you. So if I've done everything right, what will happen is when I hit next, it creates a network connection, it searches for o365teacher@gmail.com settings, and it ties that communication back and forth. And the next step it's going to do, as soon as it finishes that, it's going to go ahead and log on to the mail server. Let's see if I've got the user ID. Yep, it found it. It communicated with Gmail. It said, okay, you know what? There we go. Now it says your IMAP email account is successfully configured. IMAP, a little bit of trivia for you. IMAP and POP, P-O-P, are the two different ways that we can connect and the way we can communicate with our mail server. What POP does, POP stands for Post Office Protocol. What it is doing is it's actually going to the mail server, taking a file off of it, and bringing it local. So it basically is a one-way. It brings it, sets it, puts it over here. IMAP, on the other hand, actually is an open dialogue communication. So that as I do something here, it updates the mail server. As the mail server does something, it updates me here. IMAP is the preferred way to do it. And you can see at this point, Gmail, because of its ongoing communication with Outlook, has set it up as an IMAP. Does that mean you couldn't configure it to be POP? No, but you'd have to manually do that. At this point, because we're just getting started here, I'm simply going to say finish because I'm not going to add a second account. We're going to talk later about managing multiple email accounts in one Outlook mailbox. So when I hit finish, it finishes the configuration, it sets up the Outlook interface, and look at what I get. I get Microsoft Outlook. So what am I looking at here? I'm looking at Microsoft Outlook. Well, let's talk about the elements that I have. When I look across the top, I've got my tabs. So if I click on Home, notice that my tab drops down. When I click on Send, all my folder and my view. This is where my ribbon is actually housed. We're going to come back and talk about each of those elements as well. Now over here on the left, I have some other things that I can see. And I want to draw your attention to the fact that it's minimizing my interface. It gives you a lot of flexibility to change the way you see the stuff here. We're going to come back and talk all about how you customize it to match the way you look at it. But the first thing is, I've got these tabs down the side. Just like I have tabs across the top, I have tabs down the side. And I get this little chevron. It's kind of either an open bracket or greater than or less than symbols. You remember from elementary school? Well, if I click on Expand the Folder Pane View, what I get is I get a view of folders. Outlook is not just one thing. It's not just one place. What it allows me to do is to organize my emails in lots of different ways. And what we can see here is I have my folder pane, or the folders that are associated with my particular inbox. Again, we'll come back and talk about the details of this in just a minute. Down here on the bottom, this is where I can switch between my email, my calendar, my tasks, the different sub-applications that Outlook is providing me. Because remember, I said that Outlook is going to provide you send and receive email capability. Ooh, great! But it's also going to give you a great calendar. It's also going to give you a great contact list. Just to let you know, this calendar and this contact list is also the basis for the integration with the other Office products as well. Then I get right here, and by default, I'm kind of going over the default layout here. This is what's my inbox, my message listing. This is where I see the individual messages that have been sent to me. And you can see that I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them. Over here is what's called my window, my preview window. So when I click on one of these messages, it actually puts the information over on the other side. So I'm actually able to read the email on the far right-hand side. Just like every Outlook application we've seen, or you should have seen at this point, bottom right-hand corner, you get a zoom function where I can change how zoomed in or zoomed out I am. The difference in this case is it's not zooming the entire application, it's zooming my reading pane. It doesn't actually zoom the whole application, it's just what I'm actually looking at. So it gives me a chance to zoom into the email that I want. Then I can change the reading view here as well. Okay, well, let's start taking a look at how can I make this a little easier to use. Well, me personally, I don't like having to click on it to see my ribbon. I like the ribbon to be available. So when I have the ribbon open, I can come over here and I can pin the ribbon. What I do when I pin the ribbon is I'm basically bringing the shape down and putting stick pins in it, saying, you know what, just make it there. This is more normal to what I see when I look at the other Office products, so that I can see that ribbon at any point in time. Remember that my ribbon provides me all of my tools. These tools, unlike most other applications as part of the Office product, they're going to change based on the sub-product that I'm using. So if I'm using Calendar, for example, the tools that I'm going to have available on the home menu are going to be different. So let's see that. Notice I have, new mail, new items, new meeting, blah, blah, blah. Well, if I go down here and I click on Calendar, I get a completely different set of tools on my Home tab. So what Outlook does is it says, okay, you're working in Calendar, here's your things you can do. You're working on email, here's the things you can do. And it gives you quick access to the tools that are related to that particular part of Outlook, if you want to think of it that way. So when we get back over here, we're taking a look at the overall view of what we have here. Now later on, we're going to talk about all the customization. How can I change this, make it more usable? There's some other features that show up. But generally, what I've done is I've created an email. I've created my account in Gmail. I already have that. I've configured Outlook to go and get and talk to that account on the mail server for Gmail or for Google Mail. Well, before we go anywhere, let's go ahead and do the very basic, absolute first thing ever you want to do, and that is to send an email. So let's go ahead and send an email. Now within my email application, which is what I'm looking at here, far left-hand side it says New Email. When I click on that, I'm going to get a window that pops up. And when that window pops up, notice I have a completely different set of tools. Because what Outlook is doing is it's saying you're now in message mode. Here are the tools you need for your message mode, which means I can't always go back and forth depending upon where I am. Okay, we're not going to talk too much about this. We just need to address this to somebody. So just like you would with your letter, right, the name and the address and everything else on it, what Outlook and the way the internet emails work is you have all that wrapped up into one. Here's a little trick. If you ask somebody and say, hey, what's your email address? And they go www.google.com, you know they have no clue what they're talking about. That's not an email address. That's a web address. Email addresses have a very, very specific format. The format is something, O365Teacher, at the @ symbol, that's my location, a name, that's my server name, dot something. So it could be O365Teacher at gmail.com. Or it could be jshofer at k12fl.us.com. It just has to have that dot at the end. So once again, something at something.com. Now it could be .org or .biz. The ending .something could be a little bit different. So all I have to do is I have to type that in there. So let's go ahead and type it. I'm going to send it to one of my other email accounts, jshofer at gmail.com. If you don't have an email account already, Gmail has the ability to create new email addresses for free. Now, if you're using Outlook, absolutely you can connect it, send and receive email through Outlook. But with Gmail, they actually have a web client as well, which is a web page that you can log into and get your email as well. Same thing as Hotmail, same thing as Yahoo Mail. Me, I happen to use Gmail. That's my preference. You can prefer Hotmail. My father, for example, loves Hotmail. They do about the same thing. Just pick one and kind of stick with it, because otherwise you're going to get all these different emails and what is the password and all this stuff. Okay, so I am sending this to jshofer@gmail.com. The other key element, there's 3 things you need to do to an email address before you send it. First one is I have to address it. The second one is I should, now I don't have to, but I should put in a subject. I'm going to say my first email. The reason we put a subject in is a lot of browsers or a lot of clients will only display the subject when they look at it. So it came from me, O365Teacher, and here's the subject. If I don't put a subject, they're not going to know what it's about. Are they going to open it first? Or are they going to open it last? If you've been using email, you understand the term spam. If you haven't used email a lot, you will learn it quickly. All the email that you get, you can be inundated with email, because how easy is it to send an email? We're about to see here, it's 3 clicks. Send it, send it, send it. And with your programming ability that you've got, you can actually create a list and send it out to everybody on your list, whether it's 1, 10, 10,000, or 100,000 people. That's what spam is all about. Okay, so anyway, 1, address it. 2, you want to put a subject line. And the third one, which is down here, which is the body of the email. I want to go ahead and type, hello. This is my first email. How cool is that? Josh, not Jish, Josh. You can tell I'm not a typist. All right, so what I've done is I've created an email. I went ahead and I created an address. I put a subject in, and I have the body of it. Now to send this on its way, all I have to do is hit send. Now when I hit send, what's happening is Outlook talks to the Gmail server, to that connection that we set up. Gmail looks at the address and goes, oh, okay, whoosh, sends it on its way. And then on the other end, Gmail gets this email, says, oh, it's for Josh? Yeah, let me hold on to that in his post office box. So how do I get to it? How does Josh get to that email? On his end, let's just show you how this works. Here is Josh's account. I go to his inbox, and it should show up here. So did I get this addressed correctly? I know what I did. Got the wrong email address. Notice it's actually jshofer@gmail.com. So let's go back. We'll create this email one more time. That's where you get into trouble with email addresses, is it's got to be correct. Now, is there somebody out there with jshofer@gmail.com? Maybe, maybe not. The point is, I just sent it to that email address. So even if I didn't get the right one, it still went somewhere. Now, if it gets somewhere to a mail server and they go, look, I have no idea who this is, you may get a message back that says, you know what, undeliverable email. Let's go ahead and put this, my first email. Hello, this is my first email. Josh. Send it on its way. Now if I come over here and I go to my email, oops. There we go. This happens to be the web interface for Gmail. And when I look at this, you can see there is my inbox. I open it up. There we go. And he got that first email. So really and truly, that's how easy it is to configure Outlook initially, create an email, and send it on its way. So let's go ahead and get started on the next step.